Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to learn how to use APIs to connect to the databases and get some data from them. So the difference between API and using a database directly is that API has one level behind the scene that SQL, when you have a connection to SQL database, you don't have that extra level. And that extra level is used by different companies. It could be government agencies, research institute, or private company to sort of only give you access to what part of the database that they want you to have access with. And basically sort of have this layer of API for you to be able to, with your own preferences and time, to be able to get access to the part of data that you're allowed to have access to. In this video, we are going to look at an example of getting the data through API, getting the data of the stock market through the API from the FinIO website, FinHub.io website. So let's take a look at it. We'll go through the data, the website first, and then we will see how API can help us get stock market data and be able to do our analysis with it. So this is the website, FinHub.io. So it's actually FINNHUB.io. So one thing I want you to do, first thing to be able to follow up with me on this video, is to go ahead and click on this Get Free API key and get your own API. I will show you when you're going to have to use that. So let's go to our Jupyter Notebook environment. So this is our Jupyter Notebook environment. We want to pull data using it. So the way we are going to do that, we're going to still use the module request. So we import the module request and also the other two modules that we've been learning. Also, we will, because we want to work with some date and time, you will see when. We're also importing datetime from the module datetime, and also we're importing time. So let's do all the importation. And then the way it works out, the API is very simple. Basically, you sort of translate your request of the data that you want through a web address. So this web address is going to be sort of given by the API provider. So basically say, okay, if you want the stock information of Apple, so you say symbol equal Apple. So you put it there, and then the resolution is basically, do you want it daily, weekly, and it says you want it weekly. So all of these, the way you go about creating this might be different from a layer of API for different companies and different organizations. But here, the way it works for FinHub.io is you say D or W or M, which is monthly. And then you have from, which is the timestamp from, and then to, which is a timestamp to. And then token is that API key that you got. So this is mine, and the way it works, basically every time I use this token or this API key, the system recognizes that it's me getting that information or getting that query. So the system can sort of monitor how much I'm using it. So with this free API key, I think you can get up to 120 or 60 per minute request, which is nice for a free API key. But for a company who's doing like on-time analysis of the market, they might have to do much more than that to be able to really get what they require for their analysis. So those companies will be charged. So like this FinHub.io will sell them faster access or more bandwidth to get these access to this huge database of stocks from different aspects and different perspectives. So make sure that you do not use this mine API key. I mean, it's a free API key as well, but if you use it, and if I use it at the same time, or if some other classmates use it at the same time, you might run into an error and you don't know what to do with it, because there's going to be an error. So I highly suggest that you have your own, and so you make sure that those type of error are not popping up for you. So let's go ahead and do that. So basically you have API address, and we did have this, and then we say request.get and you put the API address. So once you run this, if everything goes well, you will get respond 200. This means that the API went well. I got to the web server and I got the information back from it. So that's what that means. So once you say R for this API, when you say r.json, it basically shows you what has been brought back. So you have C, which is closing cost, and then you have probably other things. I might not be able to spot it because it's just so much data. So JSON is another way of sort of like having a data or like exchange it, like CSV. And pandas can handle CSV and also JSON. So all you need to do to be able to like get that very nice looking table or data frame, you say pd.dataframe and say r.json. It sort of just reads that and like just shows you that table. So here we go. So we have the closing cost, the high, the low, and the opening for every day. And you also have the time for these prices. So one thing I could do, I could, instead of T, I could apply a datetime from time stamps, basically from timestamp, make it into a datetime. So it's a function that I'm applying to this column. So once I do that, now I will be able to look at the time as a datetime. So let's look at an example. I want to calculate the minimum, maximum, mean, standard deviation. Amazon daily stock, closing stock values, so these C, from the start of March 1st, start of the pandemic in 2020, to September 30th in 2020. So let's see during the pandemic how Amazon stock changed really. Like what was the minimum, maximum, what was the trend, and things like that. So before continuing to watch this video, give this a try and then come back and continue watching. So first thing we will need to do is to figure out how we change the the date time format to timestamp. So remember when we were passing time, we were passing time to timestamp. This is just the way this API works. And it makes sense because timestamp is just one number. You can like pass it. I want it from this point in time to the other point in time. That's just the easiest way to come up with an API. So that makes sense. But we have to figure out how we're going to go about this. So luckily Python has modules and different things that can help us. So basically here, what you say, you use the datetime module. You say timestamp from the datetime format. So basically, I have created that datetime format. So this is my KPI key, and then my datetime format. So this is 2020, 1st of March, the start of the pandemic. And then you say, I want the timestamp of this one, this data. And then it gives you that timestamp. And then you do the same thing for September 30th. This is that date. And then you get that timestamp too. So you have the timestamp too. So now I have an empty API address. So the symbol is not shown here. It's like empty. I want to fill it. The resolution is, well, I want to put it here, from and to and token. So I use a string function format, and then I pass AMZN, which is the Amazon stock symbol, and then I pass the because I want daily stock, and then I pass the timestamp from as a string because it's a number here. I want to pass it as a string, and then I also pass timestamp 2 as a string, and then also the API key. So this will go sit here, this will go sit here, that string will go sit here. So it's like sort of like respectively. in order they will go sit where they're supposed to go. So this go over there, and this will go over here. So once I run this, now I have created that AP address. So I go ahead and run that AP address. It gives me 200. Everything went well. There's no error. So I look at the my data frame, and I use the pd.data frame. So this is the data frame. The closing price of Amazon stocks from that specific time to where we want it. So we go ahead and do that transformation again, and we will see it's from March 1st all the way to September 30th, 2020. So all we need to do now is really use the describe function. So we wanted the minimum maximum standard deviation of Amazon daily closing stock market. I just all need to say .c.describe, and it gives us the mean, which is 2,652, the standard deviation 500, which is very large number for such a short period of time. The amount of variation Amazon stock went through was very high. So the minimum was 1,600, and it went all the way up to 3,500. So the beauty of this type of analysis is, so imagine now, by this design, you could come up with different mechanisms, different programs, and different analytics by changing these symbols and the resolutions you want and the time frame to get a huge amount of data and analyze them and see the trends in the stock market and be able to make smart decisions